Good morning. Can everybody hear me? I'd like to welcome you all this morning to this very interesting talk, I hope, about living it up. I'd first of all like to introduce myself. My name's Sarah Standing. I've been a journalist for 35 years, 40 years. 35 years. It was my birthday yesterday and I was trying to kind of ignore how old I was. I've owned a toy shop in Pimlico for 20 years. I've worked for The Spectator, The Telegraph, Condé Nast, basically across all their publications. And during COVID, I was diagnosed with cancer. And so we were locked down, cancer, COVID, which was quite a interesting trio, to put it mildly. And during that time, when I was having pretty savage chemo, I wrote a book which surprised me more than anyone, because I'd always said, I'm okay at writing 1,500 words, I'm okay at writing 2,000 words, but I wrote this book, which came out in March this year. And I would say that the one lesson I took from having cancer, apart from the fact that growing old is a privilege, and I would never, ever not celebrate a birthday to the nth degree, because it truly is a privilege, it made me stop keeping things for best or waiting until tomorrow, because actually you kind of don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. And so it can be something very small. For instance, I love Florist geranium bath oil, and I would kind of save it and never use it. I just used to chuck it into the bath with abandon, and still do at every available opportunity. Wear the clothes that you just are keeping for best. Go to the places you want to go to. See the people you adore. Tell them that you adore them. And just really try and live much more in the moment, which is I always thought that was a very difficult thing to do, but actually it's quite easy. You just have to really seize the moment. And I think that as we all hopefully live longer and have more productive lives, we've all got to find a way to really make the best of it and just expand our horizons as much as possible. And so that's where I'm coming from. And I'm now going to introduce you to my three panelists who are all going to give you advice on how you can achieve that, I hope, or what you can do. Right, I am going to start with Ian, who is here, who is the head of the V&A Academy at the Victoria and Albert Museum. Have I introduced you properly?
Perfect.
Okay, off you go.
Hello, everyone. To start, I'm certainly not in a position to give anybody any advice. I don't think that's the right thing. But I can talk to you a little about what we do and how it's relevant here, I think. So I run the V&A Academy, and that is essentially the adult learning department of the V&A, and we've been running courses for a long time. I wonder, has anyone done a V&A Academy course? Yeah, brilliant. Hello. nice to see you. So I took over the Academy in April 2019, kind of a good year before COVID, and a lot has changed then. What we do essentially is we run courses and workshops and events that are designed to unlock the incredible collections of the V&A in interesting ways, and to find stories and make relevant connections to people's lives. That's a bit of a kind of corporate response, really. I think what actually happens on our courses is that we slow down time so it doesn't move for a moment, and we can look at great themes of history or social changes through the incredible objects and the stories of the V&A, and so I think we offer a kind of a communion with creativity, as it were, very a kind of slow thinking. What's happened over COVID, and I think is kind of really interesting, is that we've moved a lot of our learning online, and there's been some really kind of meaningful changes there. One is that the course has become dramatically more accessible for people. So people all over the country, the collections of the V&A belong to everyone in the UK, and now the courses are accessible to everyone in the UK, which is amazing. But it's also freed us up to pursue a slightly different approach to our learning, which I think is a bit more kind of future-focused and a bit more, well, that's jargon, isn't it? Future-focused. Future-focused. But one thing that I want to kind of talk about a little bit today, which is, for a long time, the courses at the V&A, if you haven't done one, they're kind of lecture series with the experts from the V&A and beyond, looking at the objects in the collections and kind of finding thematic resonance through those. What we're doing now is the kind of looking at the objects in flat, kind of watching a PowerPoint presentation with an expert. That will continue to happen online. But what we're doing now with the museum, obviously it's a museum, we want objects in people's hands. What we're doing with the museum is offering people a chance to get much more hands-on. I think in the past, art history learning has been very kind of lean back, and I don't think that's actually what people necessarily want. I think people want to lean over and get close and get hands-on and try processes and try different techniques and handle objects and understand them in a more embodied way. And so that's what we're doing in the future. I look forward to kind of connecting it to everybody else's activity here. But, yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. I'm now going to talk to Stephen Toy and introduce yourself and tell us what you're bringing to the table, as they say.
Thank you. Well, I'm Steve, and I happen to be the CEO of a company called Memrise, which is a language learning app. But we think about language learning very, very different, and it's dawning on me why we got invited to this panel after hearing Sarah and Ian. We believe that the best way to learn a language is to go in country and survive. And the reason that one should learn a language is to connect with other people. We're not about helping people pass a test. We're not helping people speak like a native speaker. We're not trying to get people to 3, 4, 5 years of language proficiency. We're looking to get people talking to other people. In fact, my paternal grandmother, when I was in high school learning French and a little bit frustrated by the rigorous curriculum and just learning and conjugating and the boringness of French, she just simply said, honey, listen, the best way to learn a language is between the sheets. Just get yourself a girlfriend. It'll all go out well. So it is that philosophy that we've brought to
Goody.
exactly. So some say, does that mean you're Tinder for language? No, not exactly. Not exactly. But we brought that philosophy to our app. And so what we do that is very, very different from everybody else is we give you the ability to immerse by using AI technology to filter the world's content, YouTube, TikTok, and the like, to the level that you happen to have, the words you happen to know. So you have comprehensible learning, and you can sort of get into hearing the language from people who are speaking the language and talking about interests that you have. And we've also used AI technology to build bots that can speak 60 languages and 3,600 language pairs. So you can literally practice ordering a cup of coffee when you're in Spain before you go down to the lobby and order a cup of coffee in Spanish. We look to get you in the game right away, to lean in and to use and experience the language to make language something that you can enjoy right now, not after 3 years of doing it. So you can go on vacation, as I'm sure Ted will tell you about, so you can lean in and touch and hold things, as Ian absolutely said, so that you can dive in and experience life, like Sarah said. So that's what we do.
Okay, do you have to be very technical to be able to download all this and to have it on your phone? Or
if you know how to download an app on your phone, that's all you need to do.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. We'll get back to that in a second. Ted Wake, welcome. Talk to us about your philosophy on living it.
Buenos dias.
Yes.
Sorry. I must have got the wrong app or misinterpreted Steve's wonderful Memrise. I'm Ted Wade, Managing Director of Kirker Holidays, and about 35 years ago I met Mr. Kirker, and 6 months before that he'd started a new travel company called Kirker Holidays. And I was intrigued by Kirker Holidays, and here I am 35 years later, still intrigued by what we do. Because what we're looking for is discerning travellers, discerning consumers, and the culturally curious. And I look at this marvellous audience and I think I'm probably in the right place. And we are a tour operator, and we specialise in European, North African holidays. We also do a little bit of the Middle East and round Turkey way, Palestine, Israel, Jordan, Egypt. But the main business is in Europe, and we cover about 80 cities and 300 countryside places. And what we're trying to do is to join up the dots for you. So if you are interested in a culture, and a little bit, as Steve was saying, about practical approach to these things, we're not necessarily looking for art history professors. We're looking just for those people who are probably polymaths, but you will feel cheated if you went to Madrid for the weekend and spent the afternoon at the Prado with one of our guides, then you went to the Thyssen, and then you went to Reina Sofia, and you did a day trip out to Toledo to see El Greco, some masterpieces there, and you got back and you hadn't realised that your favourite opera was on at the Opera House. You know, whether it's fine art, whether it is music, could be architecture. You know, we curate the holiday for you, and we've got a concierge service who will put all the pieces together. And you will probably also, and warning here for those of you who are focused on your diet and step count, most of our customers are very interested in restaurants. Wine consumption is to be encouraged, and our concierge will help book a restaurant for you, which is a crucial part of the package. And because of our target market is in the habit perhaps of delegating the smooth running of the fiddly details, we always have a driver to meet you when you arrive at an airport or at a railway station and take you seamlessly straight to your hotel. And most of our customers are couples, but I think we have a number of people who ask us to be very discreet because, of course, you may wish to travel with your devoted long-term partner, but you may wish to swipe right and have a go. We can cater for all of those needs very, very discreetly. And I think, as Sarah said in the intro, look, we've all got a wish list of things that we are planning to do when everything is in exactly the right place. And you've got your wish list of great destinations. It may be the Orient Express. It may be Prague for the weekend. It could be a number of different things. But don't do what some people do, which is they reach what the economists call the end of your planning horizon with a number of places still on your wish list. Do it now. Book now to avoid disappointment. I think I should say that.
That's the best advice. That's the advice I would give everybody as well. Just go for it. I've got a quick question to ask you. Travelling has become more and more nightmarish in terms of getting to your destination. I love the fact of you always send a car to meet you from the airport to the. What about this end of travelling? Can you make that easier as well?
Yeah, to a certain extent, but we would collaborate with our customers in terms of simple things like giving people instructions about a sensible time to travel. And an airport, we have some favourite airports. One of my favourite airports is the City Airport. It's a 20-minute check-in. So simple things like that are important. And don't do what my 87-year-old mother and her elderly cousin did the other day, which was to save £50 and go on a flight to Italy at 6 p.m. in the evening. So they didn't get to the hotel until 1 o'clock in the morning because they wanted to save £60. And we are keen to give people practical advice. And the other point, Sarah, which is important, is that If you like travelling by train, now is a fine time to travel by train. And it takes a little bit longer probably, but you can go all over Europe by train. And we do a number of tailor-made holidays where you can go via Paris, and we have a driver waiting for you, let's say at the Gare du Nord, to take you across town to the Gare de Lyon. So it's a seamless transfer, and it's very relaxing. Of course, the Eurostar network is outstanding, and you can go quite a long way on that. And it's great for the planet too, so something to boast to your grandchildren about, not only your logistical language skills, but also it's sustainable to go by train. However, it takes a little bit longer, and you may wish to fly home, but you don't need to tell anybody about that. And so we can tailor-make it so you go out by train and you fly back. And that travelling by train, I think, is more relaxing.
I think that's a wonderful thing to address, actually, because I think one of the reasons that travelling is sometimes arduous, and I'm married to somebody who's older than me, and he suddenly finds travelling very more difficult. You know, you've got that 80-mile walk when you arrive in Gatwick or wherever you arrive. But I think that if you take things slower, as you say, and take more time to do them, I mean, gone are the days where I will ever get up at 3 a.m, as you say, to save, £40 and get on a flight at 5:15 in the morning, because it ruins the following day, and also puts you in quite a bad mood at 5:15 when even Pret-a-Manger is closed.
I think the other point to great museums like Ian's, the timed entrance ticket where you skip the line. These are all sorts of the key things which are just ironing out the creases. To make it a better experience, and it helps if you can interact a little bit. We're using the right language, but I think that it's probably a little bit more expensive to go with Kirker. But I can see some very loyal Kirker clients in the audience, and hopefully what we do is it may be a little bit more expensive, but it's much better value when you think about the advice. And time is probably your most precious commodity, and so weaving all of these things together, and one of the most important bits of advice that we give our customers is simply not to rush. For goodness sakes, you can arrange a dog sitter for an extra day, and quite often, in fact, because we've all read that the flight costs are going up, quite often we might say, come back a day later and you'll save at least as much as you're going to spend on the hotel for the additional night, and come back the following day. So don't rush, take it easy, go to the finest museums, but plan it in advance. And perhaps the other thing is, when you get there, don't make it an endurance test and try and do everything. Just liaise with somebody, perhaps your favourite specialist tour operator, and try to do the right things.
I think I feel like I've got 3 wonderful nannies sitting here who can hold one's hand, help you travel, help you speak languages in or beneath the sheets or on top of the sheets. I mean, who can? And expand your mind. I'm going to ask you a little bit more about the V&A's courses. Are the majority of them online?
They are at the moment, yeah.
And do you connect with other people that are online when you're doing them, or is it a completely solitary? Absolutely.
So Steve will know that learning is a social phenomenon, and so we've tried to replicate that as far as possible. So technically speaking, what happens is on one of our online courses, you log into something called Microsoft Teams. I imagine there'll be a shiver going through people who know about it, but we try and make it as easy as possible. But the reason that we do that is so that we can create these kind of these closed environments where the people you're learning with are all learning together and learning the same thing. So you never see someone you never see a question asked by someone who's not also following along your course. Okay. And I think that's a reflection of, I think what we're all kind of talking about in a way is kind of curated connection somehow. And I think we know that it can actually be quite... To learn as an adult, whenever you start to do it, is to put yourself in a position of vulnerability, I think, in some way. You are in some way admitting that you don't know what you're about to learn, right? You say to yourself, I don't know about the European Renaissance, so I'm going to engage in it, or I don't know enough and I want to go further. And that's a position of vulnerability. So we want to create these safe spaces for learning where you know who is there and you know what's coming up. And you've got lots of support in that environment as well. So I think it's really not dissimilar to the kind of to your model there is about kind of curation and a little care. I wouldn't maybe nannying is a little strong for what we do.
I quite like that. But also I think that we live in a world today where it's very easy, especially as one gets older, to be very isolated in what one does. And by going out and exploring things, it makes one less isolated. Everything can be brought to your house. You don't really need to leave your house anymore. And I think that that's very convenient at times, but I think as your world slightly, or your horizons slightly narrow, it's very important to push against the barriers and to keep it open, because you can have everything delivered by Amazon, you can have your food delivered by Ocado, you can talk to people on the phone, you can snoop on other people's lives on Instagram or whatever it is. And it's incredibly important to kind of just get out there, go to places, learn new things. And I think learning is something that is such a luxury when you don't actually have to do it. I mean, there are very few people, maybe there are, but I mean, at school, it's homework, it's a slog, you're being told what you've got to learn about. And I think the wonderful thing is that we all now can choose what we want to learn about and tailor-make it to ourselves.
I think that for us, as far as art history learning, I think maybe this goes to what Steve was saying as well. The online learning, which does happen at that part of the learning happens at home. But what it's focused on is increasing your confidence, so that you can go out there and read a painting, read a piece of work,
Exactly.
read a plaza, or read a street
Yes.
as you walk around with friends, arm in arm, on a nice tour, with whomever you're with, arm in arm with,
person telling you what to say.
Yeah, exactly.
Would you like to just expand slightly, explain how, for a very kind of a Luddite like myself, how it actually works? You download the app, and
so you download the app, and I guess the fastest way to explain how it works is anytime you want to learn a language, you need to do three things. One is you got to remember the words, right? Hola means hello, means bonjour, means privyet, right? So you just got to do that. And most language apps, that's what they do. They're fancy flashcard companies. We do that. Duolingo, Babbel, Busuu, Monly, Drops, Rosetta Stone, all the ones that you've heard about. They do the flashcards. But that's only one of three things you need to do. The second thing you need to do is you need to hear those words in real life, said by native speakers who are truncating things all the time, speaking quickly, have different accents, so that you can decode those words. Because it's one thing to see hola on the flashcard, it's another thing to hear it out in the real world. And then the last thing that you need to do is you need to try to use the language. And this is why Going in Country and Surviving works so well, because if you want a coffee or a beer or a ticket on the next train, you gotta use the language. And where we are trying to help everybody quickly get over that hump is by using AI technology to give you a chatbot to practice with. And the single most important thing about this is that people will actually use it. Because everybody who's first trying to use a language does not want to actually say something out loud because they are afraid they'll be perceived as stupid. They're afraid they'll be perceived as a 5-year-old speaking a language for the first time. because you will sound like that when you first try it.
Do the AI people, they never laugh at your efforts?
Exactly. They do not judge.
Okay, they don't
The
judge.
robots don't
Okay.
judge. And they are incredibly patient, and they'll go through the process of ordering a coffee with slightly different variations over and over and over again, gently correcting where mistakes are made, so that you can quickly get past that and then go talk to people. And it is that we truly want. Every single one of you who has ever done any kind of traveling to a country that you don't speak the language, you know the experience of being in a slight bubble, not being able to connect to anybody out there, even if it's the waiter or the barista. It's just, there's them and there's you, just because no connection can be made. But if you can simply say hello in their language, it's all of a sudden all kinds of walls just fall down all around you, and the whole dynamic of your trip changes.
And I think we're particularly bad as a country. I always find when I go to Europe, the barista or whatever is much more likely to speak a little bit of English than I am to speak Spanish or whatever I'm trying to speak. And I think that certainly when I was a child, when you learn a language at school, so much is focused on the grammar that rather than conversational.
Just being understood.
Yeah.
Nobody cares if you use the
unless
right
you're going
tense.
to write a book. And even if you do, somebody else can translate it for you into another language.
Exactly.
No, I think that's very interesting. I can't wait to download it.
Absolutely.
Has anybody got a question that they'd like to ask anybody on the panel before we go any? Yes.
Do you have to pay for the app or Memrise?
So it is what we call a freemium app. So you can use it for free. To unlock all of the content, there is a subscription level, but you can absolutely get in and use all aspects of it for free.
And what's it called?
It's called Memrise, and it's spelled MEMRISE. So Memrise, sort of like memorize, but spelled slightly differently.
Can I just ask you, how similar is it to, you mentioned Duolingo,
So,
who are using that one? I've tried to use it, and I find it incredibly dull.
I can understand why. So Duolingo does the flashcard portion of the equation, and that's basically it. Though just last month they introduced a chatbot in 2 languages only on iOS. So they're slowly getting there. But the one thing that really or the 2 things that really distinguish us is, one, with Duolingo, you have to learn the words in the order that they teach it. Whereas you can say, okay, I want to learn how to order in a restaurant and coffee and buy train tickets and check into a hotel. I don't need to learn about the members of a family. And then secondly, we just have, tens of thousands of videos where you can actually hear the words that you're learning spoken by native speakers, using slang, using the truncation, using their accents, so that you got a shot of understanding what's going on when you land in Madrid or Paris. So those are our big differences.
Yes.
You have Albanian on your language.
We don't have Albanian at the moment, but it's interestingly enough, the way that we're going about building dictionaries and video compilations and chatbots, we are now going to be able to add additional languages much, much faster, because computers can do what we used to do with humans.
Which is vaguely terrifying in some
many
ways.
respects, yes.
Yeah, I always wonder how it's going to play out in a court of law. Yes, you were there at the night of the murder. We've got photo evidence of you. I mean, yeah. What kind of cities do you think are really good unusual cities to go to?
An unusual city well, of course, you can go to the unusual cities, and of course, if you go to Seville, it would be irresponsible not to find time to go to Cordoba too.
Yeah.
And I think it's about joining up the dots, and it's about making sure you don't miss anything. But back to my point about the endurance test. You don't want to try and do too much. And I think you know, Tallinn is fascinating. The Baltic states, Vilnius, Tallinn, and Riga is a wonderful selection of it, particularly interesting now politically. We always recommend you have one of the Kirker private guides, and you get an insight not only into the history and the fine museums, but you also meet a well-educated, middle-class local person who can tell you a lot about the local history and the current history. And so go to one of the less well-known cities, but make sure you book a private guide. And just onto the chat box and the AI point, of course, Kirker Holidays is very proud of an amazing website, and you can have a swim around on the website, and it's easily navigated. But to book a holiday with us, we employ real human beings. And I'm afraid you have to dial a telephone number and speak to a person, because we maintain, and I think that this will be true for many years, you know, to have a sophisticated interaction with a fellow human being about your needs, about what you want. And it's not about the algorithm, about what the average person wants. And you can go through a website and you will get down that pathway. And if you're the average person, you'll have a perfectly matched average holiday. But for what we find is that, you know, discerning, experienced travellers, you know, you've got particular wants and needs. And apart from knowing what you do like when you get to the V&A Museum, or what you like about a language when you're learning it, it's about what you don't like. And you know, life's a bit too short to do stuff you don't want to do anymore. And so speaking to a human being about that, I think, is a really good idea.
Also, I have to say that booking online for travel is fine sometimes, but the moment anything goes wrong, you are actually stumped. I mean, trying to change a ticket or to alter something or to add a suitcase, you need to go to an academy thing that the V&A doesn't have, on how to kind of keep your temper, keep your blood pressure down, and basically just not have a nervous breakdown doing it. And it's those sort of things, a little, but they take away the joy of the ultimate thing.
I was speaking to somebody. I went to an antiques fair where we had a stand the other day, on last Friday, and I was speaking to a lady, and she had gone on the Eurostar to see the Vermeer with us in Amsterdam. And she made exactly this point, Sarah. She said, I was expecting to have a nervous breakdown when I learned that there was a French rail strike on the way home. And before I had poured myself a gin, you'd called me, somebody from your office had phoned to say, by the way, tomorrow, the day you're due to come home, there's a French rail strike. And the Kirker colleague in the office offered two alternatives. One was to stay an extra day in the same hotel, come back a day later at our expense, or alternatively was to fly via Gatwick instead of coming home on the train. And if you book with a package holiday company that's looking after you, that's what you get. So you definitely, hopefully...
Online just throws you through the wolves.
It's torture.
It's torture. Also, trains in Europe, I have to say, without sounding unpatriotic, are so much more luxurious, all train, and on time, fast, clean, fabulous. I mean, I travel quite a lot through Spain by train and also by France, and it's an altogether different experience.
Yeah. The Ave train system in Spain is fantastic. More reliable than the bullet train in Japan. Not many people know that, and it's good fun. And you know, if you want to indulge yourself, if you go the top business class, it's pretty comfortable, and somebody brings you a choice of wine and food at your seat.
That's edible as well.
That's edible too.
Edible and drinkable. Have we got any more questions? Yep.
I was
person who's zoomed out, can you tell me about actual classes for people?
I guess you mean in the museum? Yeah, absolutely. And so yeah, we do offer them. We are bringing them back. I mean, so what we do is for every one of our online courses, we'll have a termly day in the museum. We're also starting to offer 5-day long courses back in the museum as well. Then there's one thing I haven't mentioned is that V&A is going through an enormous amount of change at the moment. We're opening 3 new museums in the next 3 years, which is enough to be going on with. Thank you very much. And so we're having to make real kind of choices about where we put our people. And at the moment, what we're doing is we're concentrating on that responsibility that we have to offer learning to people all over the country, which means growing the online courses essentially. But it's still a museum. There's still, 2 million of the most stunning objects in the world. So we're looking at different ways, different really properly, I don't want to say integrated, but properly sensible ways of bringing people back into the museum for learning, because it's the deepest possible engagement you can have. If you get those purple gloves on and hold a thing and smell it and understand its weight in the hand. It is a completely different order of things. But I was actually going to say, we're technically an arm's length non-governmental body or something. So we have this public mission as well as kind of offering a kind of business side of things as well. And I find that there can be a real tension there that I wondered actually if Ted, you find it that we kind of have a responsibility almost to take people outside of their particular comfort zone of their kind of area of interest. And I know that there's real public interest at the moment about learning things that are outside of your normal ken, outside of what you would stumble across. And I kind of that's a real tension for us at the moment. But trying to offer courses that maybe people wouldn't think that was the kind of thing that I was interested in. What we found during COVID when we went online was that we could go and find people in their communities and tell them stories with using the collections, tell them stories or help them to tell themselves stories about those things that just wasn't open to them before. So I know a lot of people feel a bit kind of, they enjoyed that space and they enjoyed coming into to do the weekly courses with us, and that's not happening at the moment. But I think the decision we've made is a reasoned one and a good one.
I think the lesson to be taken from all of this is that we've all got enough stuff, enough possessions, enough whatever. What we all need to focus on is experiences, because that's what you kind of carry in your heart at the end of the day. I'm completely blind. I can't see the sign that's being held up. 5 minutes. Okay, 5 minutes. Sorry. And I think that all these things, everything that everybody on this panel is offering, are experiences, memorable experiences that just enrich one's life and are far more meaningful in a way than anything else. You sort of think all the rest is important, but that's just clutter. It's people, experiences, not letting your mind atrophy at any level, and just to keep going on. I don't know if anybody else thinks that's my maximum life anyway. I don't know if you've got a maximum life that you want to share with this audience. Each of you, go on and give your...
The maximum life section, okay.
Yes, go on.
I think
As being a very young member of this panel.
Yeah, I'm certainly not able. I kind of find myself struggling to explain the world to my 6-year-old. But the insight that I have from having worked with lots of people who are learning in, who maybe coming into retirement or kind of winding down their working life and moving into learning, is that it's about the learning is actually about getting the confidence to then go out and use it. The learning is not the aim. The going out and experiencing the thing, using the connections that you've made in the learning and the kind of skills and almost the kind of creative confidence that you can get from learning these things gives you a depth of experience that you wouldn't otherwise be able to have. And I'm sure, Steve, that's what
fantastic.
you've been talking about too.
Without a doubt, what we're providing is a way to just lever open experiences when you go traveling. You want to go and connect with people and learn more about people and cultures and so on. You don't want to spend 3 years learning a new language. So these are tools to help you just crack open the potential of connecting with other people. That's what we're there to do. Get people to understand other people.
I would say, I think, Sarah, to your point, never miss an opportunity to celebrate a birthday or an anniversary or just a special occasion. It may be that the weather has been miserable and you deserve a short break holiday. And I think that...
Let's all go tomorrow, because today's pretty gloomy as well.
And so it's about definitely taking those opportunities. And we try to create enriching cultural experiences. And it's definitely curated, but in a light touch sort of way. And we need to find out what your interests are. And some of our customers, they only want to do Renaissance art, and we can certainly create a week of private guides to the right museums in any city all over Europe to fulfill that. Others just want a damn good lunch and a visit to the palace and the gardens associated. But they also, if they're in Madrid, they want to know that it's only an hour by train to Toledo. And so relax into it. Some of Kirker's best customers are those that phone us up and they say, look, we've done a dozen trips with you. Where should we go next? And that's a great place to be. And if you're familiar with the V&A, just arrive on the doorstep, says, so what's good today? Or which language should I focus on? Tell me something new. And actually with Steve, I'm thinking already that we should do a joint event, because people who want a Kirker holiday will definitely have a more enriching Kirker holiday if they've done a little bit of homework with Memrise.
And if they've gone to the V&A Academy.
Absolutely. That's the venue. That's the venue.
The venue. I'd like to thank the three of you so much. Ted, Steve, Ian, thank you very, very much. It was a really good discussion, and let's all go somewhere